So a Coddiwomple is traveling with purpose to an unknown destination. And that is like the perfect word to describe how I live my life. And probably how we all live our lives, because we don't know what our destination is. Um, but in my process, it's very Coddiwomple-y. I have no idea where I'm going. I have an intention, but I never have a fixed image in my mind of what the outcome will be. So um, Coddiwomples became a fun word for me to say. I liked it. I thought it was a perfect word to describe this body of work. But I also feel that if I were to steal a title, a movie title, I would call it Everything, Every Place, All at Once. And that's because I feel like when I'm in my studio, I am every place, everywhere, all at once. And there's so much emotion. If I have the radio on, if I have, total quiet, there's so much going on that my mood can change, especially because I work on my pieces for a very long time. And so many moods, many things are happening in the world. And you can see that there's like death, there's like the scary, there's darkness, there's silly. And I try to balance out all of that. I try not to have one piece totally scary, that there might be a little bit of silliness in it, to break up everything so that we're not just caught in like fear. Like when I'm in my studio, I don't get distracted with the world and what's going on, but I accept it and put it into my work, and I try to balance it out so that I can tolerate my daily life, basically, is where it's coming from. So my work has always been about my response to my environment and moving around a lot as a child and as a grown-up. I collect wherever I go. So we live in Sullivan County, and we have a lot of property there that I spend outdoors. And then we're in Brooklyn. And the contrast between the two is always really exciting to me, because I could be working on one piece, and then the next day I'm in total wilderness. So it changes with that. And I always collect little stones, shells, sand, soil, clay from the side of the banks of the rivers, and everything I can get to sort of decide where I am, sort of give me a sense of place, not only in the colors of the textures and all of that, but sort of just in comparison to maybe centuries ago. And that's where I do a lot of research on old maps. So you'll see lines in my maps. I use a lot of these lines that represent the underwater landscapes. There's triangular shapes that represent islands. So these are all abstracted from old maps that I look into. I do research about how the environment's changed along the waterfront in Brooklyn. And I take those images and I make prints from that. And that's my foundation for all my sculpture. I take images and then I work into sculptural forms. So the sculptural forms are started with paper prints. And then after I get sort of a basic, then I start taking things for their surface. And that would be maybe the same mud or the same sand or other materials that I found along the roads that way, and combine them. And I make all my own materials from what I find in nature. And I use a lot of different kinds of plants that I can gather, like a binder with, and create my own inks. I create my own plates. I work with collagraph plates. I know we have a couple printmakers in the area here. So I do make my own inks from not only the found materials, but also I use pigments that I do purchase. It's not all grounding, but I do like grounding. I take everything I see. When I look at something, I think, oh, I want to mash that up. What will happen if I smash it? So I always have a mortar and pestle, and I'll pick up some like a stone, and I have to crush it. I'll crush eggshells. I want to see what it looks like when it's crushed. How will this react to something else? So then I take other materials and things that maybe don't mix well together, and then I just combine them, and then it's just a matter of like blending things in my work. These were all originally made upstate here, and I was looking at the patterns of leaves and the patterns in nature in combination. So these are all printed, and then what I do is I kind of try to put them back into a new form that makes it feel that it was found. I want the work to look like it's a fossil. I want it to show the layers of time. So I start out with the prints, and then I just build up all the surfaces, and you can see there's a lot of the sand and the environment that it came from the print. So I build it up. I even put like little mirrors in here because I want people to come up and experience like what I kind of go through as an artist. I really think of myself more as like an archaeologist. I'm digging, I'm putting things together, I'm discovering, and I'm putting back, and I'm constantly playing around with the materials. So I'll leave little, you'll notice there's lots of little holes and things like that where I might put magnifying lenses in there so that when you go in there, you experience that feeling of like going out and like discovering things like as a child, like, wow, like how it was just to find an ant and how much time you can spend just watching ants. Once I have my work, I like to play around with them. And my original pieces, I actually use the fungi, but over the years, that fungi kind of just disintegrates and becomes a problem. So I don't really use that anymore. But it was a good experience for me to work because I would place the piece, the mushroom alongside of the paint so I could really capture the colors of what I was working on. So in here, I built these pieces, and then I did a stop motion animation. So it kind of shows some of that time and the loss of the fungi, because these pieces may have some original fungi in them. So I like to give that sort of the presence of like looking in, like as if you were looking into a tree and seeing this movement and fast motions, things that we see that we don't have the time to watch because things grow so slowly. But when you have it in a video of it, then you can kind of have that sense of movement and time. I want them to look like I broke off a piece of tree and that you can have that piece of tree. But this is all photographically and hand-drawn prints. And this piece, the blue heron, goes with the two pieces over there, the blue heron. And I did that from the Callicoon Bridge. I was standing on the bridge. My husband and I, William, were there, and he has the patience. That's incredible patience, because I had to stand there for at least an hour. Just watching this one blue heron. And there was something so peaceful about it. It was like how there was a stillness, but then when he saw something, it was like, like grab it right away. And I just like love that sort of being so attentive. It just gave me this really good calm feeling. So I wanted to capture that in a video, that sort of calm stillness, because so much of my work could get very frenetic. And in my everything everywhere all at once, I had to balance out my work. So when I come up here, it's like, oh, okay, I can relax, I can take my time. Another material I really like is a little bit of mica or crushed glass, so that there's just this little subtle like tingle of glass or just sparkle that brightens up the piece. So with these you'll see little mirrors that you kind of, not only are you looking inside the piece or the reflection from the mirror, but you're also like becoming part of it. You'll see your own face in there if you really look closely. This one a little too tall for that, but this is the blue heron, what came of the blue heron. And you can see that on here, these are layers. This is a magnifying lens. And then some of these pieces have parabolic mirrors. And a parabolic mirror is shaped like this. It's like a cup. And then there's another shape on top of it. And what it's doing is it's reflecting the image that's below onto the surface. So it has sort of a holographic look to it. So if you look on this piece right here, this is the spot. You got to find the spot. And then it's an illusion. So when you touch it, it projects and it looks like an illusion. I like to play around with reality and imagination because I feel like that's our lives now. What we don't know what's real, we don't know what's imagined, we don't know, there's so much in our lives that, is that real? So the same thing that's happening here. So if you kind of stand right here where I am, when you get a chance, take a look, and then you can kind of play with it. It almost feels like you're touching it. And then this area shows like the building up, the architect or archaeologist in me pulling it together. So you can see there's like a lot of things going on. There's like bones and there's like scary stuff. But then, sometimes the blue, I think, helped balance that. Sometimes I just want to, like, if I see that it's getting a little too, scary, I might just like put some bright color in there just so that it makes it makes it so that you can tolerate some of the fear. This one is a really good example of the projection. If you come on this side, you'll see the mirror and the lines. So these, all the lines represent landscape, underwater landscapes along the river, how the different levels of erosion and things like that. And then when I look in here, those things are projected out. It almost looks like a video, but I don't have an electric cord. So I really like that, no cords. So, you have all these bone structures, but then they become silly in a way. Like, why is that there? That's like a hip bone, but it's really a shoulder bone. And so you can see here, this is how I start. I work with a lot of maps, and the maps are from the locations. Like, this is the waterfront, these are the layers, this is the land, and these are things that I may find along there. These are the more of the lines from the maps. And this is in my little silly moment. These are docks. This is along the waterfront where the docks, so these lines represent the docks. This line shows foreign lands, and then these are the underwater landscapes showing the depth of the river. And so this piece is all made from maps, and then I add the surface. This is ceramic in here. So I combine things. Sometimes this is plastic. I'll just play around with different pieces of plastic I might find. This piece is called If Octopuses, and it reads, if octopuses were able to live longer, they would have become the dominant intelligence on Earth. And I just thought that was such a great statement. If octopuses live longer because they're so brilliant, but the only reason they're not the dominant is that they die. They don't live as long as we do, so they don't have time to rule the world. Yeah. So you can see in here, these are the prints. Sometimes the prints are on the top surface and sometimes they're on below surface. So if I were to strip this down, you would see a lot of this going on, but then as I build up the surface, then the map images start getting buried. So these, you'll see that these, I use a lot of bones as not only the structure, but for concept as well. So balance it out with the beauty of a shell, you know, life and death kind of thing going on. And this is all made from like clay. I make my own pigments with crushing a lot of the clay. I'll take some clay and then dry it out, and then I'll crush it and then add it back into the paint. This is As the World Turns. And I have a lot of text in here as well. These are articles. I collect a lot of different articles about different, these are like oil spills, I think, from here. Just whatever current event is happening that day that I'm working where I am. But when I print them, what I'm doing is blurring them so that the information that I'm putting down is blurred, just like when you're scrolling on the internet, it's like, what did I just read? And then you read the same thing, but it's an opposite story. And then it's that sort of that whole feeling of like, what's going on? It's like that, the whole blurriness of not being able to really understand what you're reading. So I physically make that text overlap, and so you really can't read what I'm trying to say here because there's so much overlapping going on, just like in real life, or should I say real virtual life. And this one is also kind of a scary one. It turns around. These are all prints and plastic and just manipulated around. This here I'm playing around with some of the lines. I do this a lot where the lines from the maps go off on their own dimension here. So I'm trying to bring out the wires. A lot of times I work with some wires just to hold pieces together, but like it might look like this underneath and then I just leave it raw. I like that kind of unfinished raw look, so I may leave that as it is. Or the sort of the greeters. That's how I feel. So this one in the middle is very different than most of my work. And that's because normally I always try to blend things so that there's a connection from one element to the other. Like if I use a shell, I want it to look seamless in the piece. I want the whole piece to be one piece, so there's no breakup. And for this one, I felt very brave that I separated the color. That purple stand, that was supposed to be like a wave, like this figurative thing is surfing. It's called surfer. But that my attempt was that it was a wave, and instead of being in the ground, that this piece was sort of riding the waves. Well, you know what? Not every morning I wake up inspired. It doesn't matter if I am inspired or not. You just go, and it's like a job. You go in and you work, and you work through it. Sometimes it takes an hour to get into it, and sometimes I'll just go up and clean my studio and then find a broken piece on the floor and go, oh, now I'm inspired. You know? So actually a lot of the figurative work came from me cleaning. I would just like find pieces, or I would break up pieces, and then I would look at them and go, oh, it looks like a little figure, you know, and then I would go with it. But I think inspiration is something that just comes and goes, and it doesn't matter if you're inspired or not, you just work. That's an interesting question. Sometimes I like wire things together so that stay in spot. But my favorite thing is, I have to admit, I do use a hot glue gun. And that is because it keeps things, like I can glue things together very quickly and they stay together. Where if I use like the glues, the natural glues that I use, they take time. So I don't depend on the hot glue to bind the piece. I depend on the hot glue to hold it. It's like my extra hands. It's like, yeah, it's like, can you hold this for me? Oh, thank you. You know, and I work. And then the hot glue either gets pulled off or I cover it up. But it's more of like those extra fingers that I need. Yeah, well, because a lot of this also, it's not just the city. There's also a lot of Florida in here. I know you're from Florida, the beach. Yeah, but you also have to remember that living in Brooklyn, I'm only a little ways, I'm 20 minutes from the ocean. So there is a lot of ocean in there. There's a lot of shells in here. But I take things from different locations and then put them into a new piece. So there could be Florida, there could be Colorado, there could be a combination of different elements from different locations in one piece that makes it, you know, its own little world. I think of them being fossilized, but future fossils. Because there's a lot of plastics in there too. There are little bits that I just find if I'm walking along the street. You know, it's like, wow, what's that shape? And even if it doesn't have a sense of like nature, it's a piece of plastic that I would coat. I don't know if I have any examples of that right here, but there are things that I would find that have like this is a piece of plastic in here. And what I want to do with the plastic is coat it so it has that feeling of it was dug out of the ground, so that it looks aged and that it looks old. That there's a question of time. Is this future or is this the past? I want them to be timeless. Well, scale recently became important to me because I've realized that it's really hard for me to do anything higher, further than 50 pounds. Because if I can't move it, then it's a problem. So I kind of try to keep it. I like this size because this is a very comfortable size for me, but I also have pieces that are the same size as me. Um, and now it's really difficult for me to move those pieces around. And also, what works well small doesn't always work well large. It's like little kids are so cute. And then, you know, like something little is so cute. And then when you do something large, it becomes like a monster sometimes. So you know, in the scale is very important, because sometimes if you take something this size and you blow it up, it's scarier. Like the rib cage, I think, is very scary because it's almost the same size as a human rib cage, so it's more relatable as, you know, like real. Whereas when you have something like this, it could be, oh, that's so cute, it's a doll, you know, or really small pieces, they're cuter. But so now when I work really large, I do think of taking those pieces apart and and being able to put them back together again so that they're pieces that I can carry. I don't want to depend on someone to help me move something. And so I'll maybe use magnets or something and then reassemble it so that it can be larger. But I like to do all my own work. I don't want to ask someone for help. and do things like that I can't do because, you know, I don't have the strength. You thought they were heavy? Oh, because I feel like these are light compared to some of my older ones. And ask my husband about that. Save your marriage, work light.